What's up, everyone? This is Sunny here with Bottom Split Podium, and going through a bit of an identity crisis. I'm not going to be making videos about sim racing anymore. It's kind of a long story. Moved into a smaller place last year and haven't had the space. I've got the space now, but to be honest, I'm not really feeling like getting back into sim racing. It just doesn't excite me as much as it did before. There's a lot of reasons for that. I can get into that later. It's not really the topic that we're here to discuss today. What we're here to talk about today is the elephant in the room. And by elephant, I'm not talking about that big GPU that you're looking at right now. I'm talking about, well, I am talking about that GPU, but not because of its size. It's a different metaphorical elephant. And that's basically how VRAM has had a massive effect on graphics cards. Now, as you know, as some of you know who are into sim racing, Nvidia graphics cards are pretty important to sim racers, especially if you use triple screens in iRacing, because iRacing uses stereoscopic multi-monitor, like the software that it uses to render into multiple screens is actually much better on Nvidia graphics cards than Radeon graphics cards. And until iRacing programs their multi-screen to use whatever the version is that AMD has, unfortunately, like Nvidia is just better for that specific use case. Outside of that, like triples on other games, for example, that don't use the Nvidia stereoscopic rendering, and VR now. Like VR used to be much stronger on Nvidia, but now it's actually pretty good on AMD. It's not as impacted by, you know, like the difference between RDNA and Nvidia architecture. It's not as impacted. So pretty much like there's very, very small use cases where Nvidia is still better for sim racing. So if you are not inside of those very, very small niche use cases, then you could use an AMD graphics card, and maybe this will be good information for you. So to give a very short summary on why graphics cards with high VRAM, or just all graphics cards, are having a bit of a crisis right now. There's another elephant in there. We got a lot of elephants in the room today. This is not a zoo, but we've got maybe like at least two now. There might be 3 or 4 coming up soon. But actually, yeah, there's going to be 2 or 3 more elephants. We're going to have a lot of elephants in this room today. But the next elephant is basically that the reason why these graphics cards are going through like a bit of a price crisis is because of video memory. Now, to give a very short summary of why video memory is really important right now, I'm going to explain to you a little bit about AI and why AI is really good on graphics cards. So what AI is, like when you do AI stuff on a computer, when a model is running and it's giving you answers, that it's called inference. And when you give an inquiry to an AI engine and then it tries to figure out what that answer is, what it's doing is linear algebra. In particular, it's getting these, they're called vectors, and then it's doing, it's called a cross operation, which is similar to multiplication, and it's doing it on a column of data. It's not visual. This is all like computational, but what it's doing is it's multiplying, you know, the first value in the vector with the first value on the matrix, and that gives it one result. And then it does it for all the values in the vector and the matrix going across and down all the way until it does the computation for all of it, and that's going to give it what's called a weighted result. And it can take the result of that column and then plug it into another calculation in order to figure something out. So for example, if you were inquiring about what is the best university for this particular college student to go to, and you had a weight matrix that was like, for example, 0.75 is the reputation of the school, and 0.5 is like 0.1 is like, you know, whether it's in a good city or not, and like 0.05 is like the weather. And then you had a bunch of like vectors that were like the results of all these different schools. Like maybe they're a 70 in reputation, but they're only a 10 on like being in a good location. And then you multiply that by that weight matrix, and you do this for like thousands of schools, then you can get a score that tells that student this is the best school for you based on these values. But imagine that you have, instead of just one or 1,000 vectors and then one matrix, you have like hundreds of thousands of vectors and hundreds of thousands of matrices that you use to determine a result. It could potentially be billions of parameters big. And that's why AI is so heavy on VRAM, because your GPU is very, very good at doing this math, like way faster than a processor is. It can do like thousands of these computations simultaneously, like all at once, especially NVIDIA graphics cards, because they have tensor cores, which are very, very good at linear algebra. But with these AI models, you're not just talking about 1,000 different parameters. We're talking about 100 billion. So there's very popular public models that people use that have 30 billion parameters or 15 billion parameters. And then there's the massive ones that are like 270 billion parameters. And it's a bit hard to say specifically how much a model, like how much RAM a model uses, but a good rule of thumb is that a billion parameters is approximately 1 gigabyte of VRAM. And the reason why VRAM is important is because in order for your GPU to do these calculations, it has to access the VRAM really, really fast. So VRAM, especially memory bandwidth, which is like 600, 700, 1,000 gigabytes per second, is really, really critical for these models to run super, super fast. So as a result of it, anyone that's into AI or wants to run AI locally needs as much VRAM as they can get, and ideally it would be with an Nvidia GPU. And unfortunately, AI is booming right now, and there's a lot of rumors on the tech sphere and on YouTube that the AI bubble is about to pop. I don't think that you should believe that the AI bubble is going to pop. This is just my personal opinion as somebody who works in an industry that sees a lot of AI use every single day. What you need to understand is that in order for us to say that AI is a bubble and that it's going to pop, you have to somehow associate a failure of one company with the cascading failure of multiple other companies. And then you have to say, for some reason, the revenue is also going to drop. Now, I could see maybe 1 or 2 AI companies going out of business, but like multiple AI companies going out of business would be very, very strange. And then the second thing is, we're talking about an industry that has anywhere from 100 to, I don't know the exact math, but it's some crazy amount of revenue per year, like $150 billion per year. So what would have to happen is all of these customers would suddenly have to decide that they don't want to pay for these AI tools anymore, like Anthropic or Cursor or Copilot or Gemini or OpenAI, ChatGPT. They would all have to say, no, these tools are worthless. We don't want to use them. And the problem is that that's most likely not going to happen. So the highest possible outcome is that even if one of the big players in AI goes out of business or has financial trouble, they're either going to get bailed out, which unfortunately you and me and all of our tax dollars are going to go into taking care of, or they're going to get acquired by one of the other big AI players in order to absorb all of their customers, all of their models, and all of their data, and probably all of the hardware that they paid for as well. And what you need to understand is that the only reason that OpenAI is not profitable right now is because their costs are much heavier than their revenue. They have revenue, but their costs are too high. Nvidia could decide to lower their prices to get them closer to where they would need to be profitable. Nvidia might not do that because they have other customers they can sell their hardware to. But if it were a case of, okay, we either sell this hardware at a price that will make these companies profitable so that we're still earning a lot of money, or they go out of business and then we have to go back to primarily doing our business to PC gaming, I'm pretty sure that Nvidia is going to choose to mess with the numbers a little bit so that they can help an AI player become profitable. So my point is that, like, most likely AI bubble is not going to pop. And whatever's happening right now with hardware, we have to just buckle in and accept that this is the unfortunate reality until AI inference only hardware jumps into the scene, which is highly possible. We've had ASICs for doing like cryptocurrency. It's very, very possible that we could have specialized graphics processing units that only do like numerical computation for linear algebra for AI purposes. As of now, NVIDIA is the best. And unfortunately, if they decide, if they're the ones who make these specialty chips, it's not going to make RTX graphics cards more available. It's just going to mean NVIDIA is probably not going to be a graphics card company anymore if AI becomes like a staple of technology. So like that's a possibility. But if somebody else develops those chips, and for some reason they become better than Nvidia. I don't really know. That's kind of a future tech talk. But what I'm basically summarizing this as is most likely the issues that we have with GPU pricing are going to continue on for some time. Now, where does that leave you? Okay, so if you're watching this video, I made this video specifically to tell you that you shouldn't sleep on the Radeon AI Pro R9700. Now, I know the name is terrible. It is an awful name. When they named this product, I really don't think that they were thinking about making it highly easily understood by consumers. They added way too much words to the name, but this graphics card uses the same GPU as the 9070 XT. It's not binned. It's not a special version. It doesn't overclock more. In fact, the power draw for this is exactly the same as the 9070 XT. It's a 300 watt TDP card. The difference between this and a 9070 XT is that this guy has 32 gigabytes of VRAM. Remember what I said about 32 gigabytes of VRAM? Well, those openly available AI models for local inference. What you have to understand is that developers develop for what's available to them. So these models are specifically built with the purpose of being able to fit on commonly available hardware. Nobody is going to make a 35 billion parameter LLM model, like tuning the model to have 35 billion parameters would make it fit on a 40 gigabyte graphics card or something along those lines, because there are no 40 gigabyte graphics cards. There's 32, 48, and then there's 64 and 96. So you're going to have models that are kind of in that range where they fit on that slightly bigger hardware. So if you get the Radeon AI Pro, you can use the same LLM models that you would be able to use on an RTX 5090. Now, the big difference is you won't have access to CUDA, but ROCm, or ROC, has made a lot of progress over the last 6 months. Way bigger progress than you would imagine by looking at a review of the R9700 from back when it first came out. And the other thing about the reviews from when the R9700 came out is that they were based on the market at that time. So at that time, you could get a 5090 for MSRP or a little bit above it, but like the RTX 5090 is going for $5,000. That didn't really become a thing until earlier this, like in January, like at the beginning of January. But at the time that the R9700 came out, it was only half of the price of a 5090. So it kind of like there was an argument to be made that it wasn't really worth the price. But now that 5090s are going for $3,500, and the R9700, it's readily available at like, you know, close to MSRP. I'm looking at MicroCenter's site right here, and you can see that there's an open box available for $1,049. I got this one for $974. If you want to buy it, let me know in the comments. I'll sell it to you for exactly what I paid, and we'll figure something out for the shipping. But $974. And now that the 5070 Ti is going for $975 or $989 or whatever price that it's going for, it's actually the same price as a 5070 Ti, more or less. And the cheapest RTX 5080s that you can get are $1,300. So it's pretty much pay RTX 5080 price, get RTX 5070 Ti gaming performance, but get the ability to run very large local LLM models if you want to do local AI inference. So it's a very, very good mixed use case graphics card. And that's the reason why a lot of people want the 5090. You don't need a 5090. I know that you probably think you do because everybody else is trying to get one and you're like, I want to get something really, really good. But the 5090 is like nowhere. You don't need it. You don't need it. If you're the type of person who does mixed use case stuff at home, you'd be perfectly fine with this graphics card. Now I'm going to show you some gaming performance videos. So first, I'm going to put up the screen. You're going to see, I'm going to start with Baldur's Gate 3. And this is the 5070 Ti on the right and the R9700 on the left. I didn't do any benchmark customization or anything like that. I pretty much just ran DDU between running these graphics cards. I believe I ran the 5070 Ti first, and then I put the R9700 in after that. And you see that the gaming performance is pretty much the same between the two of them. Now this is 4K max settings No DLSS, no FSR, no upscaling, no frame generation, and no ray tracing. It's just the games with the max settings at 4K with whatever the default anti-aliasing setting, and you can see that it looks pretty good. Like they both pretty much, they're within a few frames of each other. The 9700 has slightly higher 0.1% lows. That's pretty standard for the 9070 XT versus the 5070 Ti. So Baldur's Gate 3, pretty much a wash between the two. You'll notice that slightly higher memory usage on the 9700. I don't know if that's drivers or if it's the resizable bar. I didn't know if that was enabled or disabled. I didn't check the BIOS. So if it is the resizable bar, let me know in the comments if that leads to higher system memory usage. But that's not the reason why. I'm not sure, but for some reason, slightly higher memory usage on the AMD system. Now let's go to the next game, which is Harry Potter, and again, pretty much the exact same performance, slightly higher memory usage on the R97. One thing that's really interesting is that the R9700 actually has pretty good thermals. I was pretty surprised. It wasn't very loud inside of my system. The temperatures are pretty good, and it didn't sound very loud, but slightly good CPU temperatures, but that's kind of a wash because in Cyberpunk and I think in Baldur's Gate 3, the CPU temperatures are pretty much the same between the two, so I don't think it has a huge impact on CPU temperatures, especially if you're using an AIO. I really don't think it makes a big difference, but it does exhaust the heat outside of the back much more efficiently. And then the last game I tried was Cyberpunk 2077, and you can see here, again, it's a wash in gaming performance. Slightly higher FPS on the R9700, but this is a bit of a tainted result because in the 5070 Ti, I did a lot more in that particular level of the game. I actually finished the mission because I got tired of running around just to check the FPS. So the 5070 Ti was stressed a little bit harder in Cyberpunk 2077. But while I was playing in similar areas, I noticed the exact same frame rate between the two. Again, no ray tracing, no frame generation, no DLSS or upscaling of any kind. So pretty much 5070 Ti performance, but with 32 gigabytes of RAM. Something else about this graphics card is I really like the sleek look. This cooler is I don't know if you could tell by looking at it in the camera. I'm going to show some high quality pictures over the screen, but the cooler is all metal. It's pretty much an all, it's like aluminum. It's an all aluminum cooler. Even the fan for the 2-slot cooler, this fan is actually aluminum. It's a very, very crisp, clean design. Fin density is kind of okay, but again, the temperatures are actually pretty good. Power draw was pretty much at a 9070 XT level. It's got the 12-pin connector out the rear because these are meant to be used in a multi-GPU configuration, so you can have like multiple cables sticking out of the back. Again, it's a very sleek design. This would actually be a very, very good GPU for an SFF PC because it's only, I mean, it's like, look at the size of it compared to the 5070 Ti that I had. And the 5070 Ti that I had was a triple slot cooler, and it was actually an SFF version of the 5070 Ti. And you can see that the R9700 was very sleek and a lot more compact. And just for comedic value, here it is next to the ginormous RTX 5090 that I was able to get, the MSI Gaming OC version. God, that GPU is massive. It's so huge. Jensen is very clearly trying to compensate for the size of his leather jacket when he made these graphics cards as big as they are. But if you have the space for it, I mean, and you could find one, it is the absolute best. And just so that you can understand how good using AI is on this graphics card, I'm going to show you this short video, and you're going to see that I use an AI prompt that I wrote that would test the GPU. I basically ask it to build a vacation rental site, something like Airbnb. I ask it to use modern design. I ask it to build the back end as well as the front end. I ask it to use a good UI library, and I ask it to include some unit tests for the business logic. I plug this in to LM Studio, and I'm using Qwen 3 Coder. It's a 30 billion parameter LLM model, and I'm using a 128,000 token context length. The reason for that is because in order for you to understand how good a 32 gig graphics card is for local LLM inference, you need to understand that this is how much space it takes. And when you're using a very wide context length like that and float a F16 quantization, we're talking about like, 22 to 30 gigabytes of video RAM that it's going to use up. And you can see here, like when I run that prompt with the R9700, It's very, very quick. It gets 139 tokens per second. That is very quick, especially with a model that big. If you were to use that model at that size and that context length on something like an RTX 5080, it would inevitably have to cut into system memory, and it would be as slow as 10 to 15 tokens per second, maybe even slower than that. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is one of the advantages. 30 billion parameters are considered to be the kind of the good size versus performance for local AI inference. The reason for that is because stepping up above 30 billion, there's actually not a lot of models available. So even if you had a 48 gigabyte card, it wouldn't necessarily give you access to more models. So 32 gig is the perfect size for like plentiful available LLM models. And in order to actually step up to a much bigger model, you would actually need a lot more than 48 gigabytes of VRAM or even 64 gigabytes of VRAM. You would need something like 128 gigabytes of VRAM. And that's why 32 gigabytes is kind of that happy, like it doesn't sound entry level because of how expensive these graphics cards are, but compared to, you know, the 96 gigabyte RTX 6000 Pro, it is pretty affordable, even if you spent $3,000 on an RTX 5090. So that's why 32 gigs is considered a very desirable like point for VRAM. Now, just so that you understand how big of a jump in performance the 5090 is, I'm gonna run the exact same prompt, the exact same model on LM Studio with the exact same context length, quantization, and the exact same floating point accuracy, and I'm going to do it with the RTX 5090, and you're gonna see here that it is blazingly fast. The final output was something like 207 tokens per second, which is a whopping 50% faster than the R9700. But keep in mind, it's 50% faster, but what percentage more expensive is it? And that's the important thing here. So if you're looking for a GPU that has more than 16 gigabytes of VRAM and is not the RX 7000 series, because the RX 7000 series isn't as good as RDNA 4 at ray tracing. So if you want modern gaming and you also want the ability to do local AI inference and some productivity tasks, please give the AMD R9700 a serious look. You're doing a disservice to yourself if you don't. I know the price is awful. I know the name is awful, but the price, especially with how expensive Nvidia's counterparts are, is actually pretty good. Now, one thing I'm gonna say is if scalpers start scalping this card and they start saying, oh, 1800, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it at that price. It's only worth it at the price that it's available right now. Maybe even a little bit less, actually. If you can get it for 1,000 to 1,100, and like I said, I've got this one and I'm willing to ship it out to you guys. You just have to pay what I paid. And you know what? I'll split the shipping with you. If you buy this graphics card off of me, I'll send you the receipt and I'll split the shipping with you. And you'll be able to get it for $975 plus tax. If you can get this graphics card for that price, it is a very, very good value and worth considering. If people try to scalp it, the closer it gets to 2,000, the less of a good value it gets, unfortunately, because of what Nvidia has in their professional grade. Nvidia has the RTX Pro 4500 Blackwell, which with education discounts, you can get for something like $2,500. So, you know, like, is this a good GPU? Yes, but only at or under $1,300. So if you can't get an RTX 5090, consider this. It's a pretty good GPU. That's it for my video. Thank you guys for watching. In the next video, I might talk about sim racing. I might not. I don't know. The GPU market's kind of crappy right now. So doing anything related to gaming is it's just depressing. That's the sad thing about it. It's really depressing. But hey, I mean, if you can get one of these, it's pretty nice. Smells good too. See you guys next time.